Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. We're just freshly back from the Charlotte Regional Championships. I'm about to start heading out to Liverpool Championships. There is a lot going on right now, but hey, we're in peak Pokemon season, so that's always a good thing. My name is Sierra Dawn. I'll be one of your hosts for today, joined by my co-host, Joe Brown. I think the less toxic of the two hosts, if we want to look at any Twitter trends lately.
Yeah, I was just saying you've been eating the pepperoni mochi out there, being so toxic on the internet here, Sierra. What's going on? Of course, so let's lift the curtain a little bit here. Also, hello everybody, mochi, hello. We were planning originally recording on Tuesday. I know this couple was on Thursday, but then schedules changed, things happened, so we're all right. Let's record on Wednesday, and then. Thank goodness we did, because now we have time to actually talk about the topic of the day, which is one Sierra Dawn herself.
All I did was tweet my opinion on the internet, which unfortunately these days is not a great thing. All I said was something along like, is it about time that we've realized Pokemon Legends Arceus wasn't actually that great? Is I don't think it was a great game. I've never finished playing it. I have disliked it since it came out. I played through it, wasn't for me. And with all the discussion about Power World, which I haven't played as much as there has been people that are like, oh, you're only saying this because you're now obsessed with this new game. I haven't played it. I'm not going to. But a lot of people have been talking about Legend Arceus again. So I decided to join in on that. And it is definitely gained some traction out there, for better or for worse.
All I did was speak the truth is basically what I'm hearing right now. And honestly, when I saw that tweet today, I was like, oh brother, I just knew. I was like, Sierra's in for a day. She's about to get, ratioed to smithereens, but this is not your first rodeo. You have, in credit to you, you have handled the wrath of the internet before on some of your takes. Some of those righteous takes I would defend you on. I don't know if this is one of them. I can understand your stance on it, because I do think Legends Arceus is probably the most divisive Pokemon game in quite a while. I don't know, maybe since Black and White and Black and White 2. So, probably over a decade, the most divisive game we've had. So you kind of chose the wrong title on the wrong day to pick a fight with the internet, I guess.
No, because I'll just tweet the same thing. So right now, as it stands, because you're saying I'm getting ratio to smithereens, it's actually really funny because it's about 50-50. There's people that are like, yeah, this wasn't really in my taste either. And then there's people that are like, Legends Arceus was the best game ever, kill yourself. So the reactions of each side of the crowd are not even, but it is actually a really 50-50 split on it. But it's funny because I'm just going to post the same thing again in the year, and it'll go from 50-50 to a 60-40 in my favor. And then the year after that, a little bit more. One of the previous tweets where I faced the wrath of Twitter was when I said that Generation 6 was the peak of Pokemon. And the people weren't ready for it. They weren't ready. That one was also pretty decisive. And then
it was
as
the
time
people's
went
mistakes.
on, I think it was about 6 to 8 months later, I started seeing more and more people post, yeah, Generation 6 was really good. Yeah, these were really good games. And it's they just weren't ready. They weren't ready for it. And they're not ready for it with Legends Arceus, but they will be one day.
I don't know if they will be, because Gen 6 is different, because this is what happens with every Pokemon mainline game, is that everyone says it's bad at first, and then over time, the people that dominate the conversation, for example, all the 6-year-olds that Black and White was their first Pokemon game, right? They're now all either, adults or close to adults or whatever, and now they're all on Twitter, and they all get to say Black and White's the greatest game ever because it was their first Pokemon game. So it's just kind of how it goes with the mainline Pokemon games. I know Legend Arceus is mainline, but I mean the traditional style of it. So because I'm old enough to remember the internet when Black and White came out, and it was not positively received, especially after Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, plus Heart Gold and Soul Silver in Gen 4. Pokemon was at its peak in Gen 4. Everybody was digging it. Everybody loved it. And then Black and White came out, and, gave us what's his name, Tepig and Snivy and all of them. At least I like Oshawott. I'll give you Oshawott. I'm a big Oshawott guy, but like it was like a big curve, and most of the internet conversation was that this was not a curve that or direction that people liked. But now that the culture has changed and time has passed, and we all put rose tinted lenses, or however that phrase works, onto our nostalgic past, like no, now it's actually the greatest. But with Legends Arceus, Sierra, where you differ is that's not the traditional game like Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3. It's kind of its own thing where it's developed its own hardcore fan base around it. It's kind of like it's like its own super mystery dungeon. Like if you came out here and tweeted that mystery dungeon was dog water, like I think you would have got the same reaction from that subset of the Pokemon community that really loves mystery dungeon.
But the thing is I am right, because
every time you say it, it's so good.
But the thing is because Pokemon most likely are going to expand on this formula. And I think it could only be for the better. I think Legends Arceus falls in kind of like the same mainframe as Generation 1, where there'll always be the people that argue it's the best because of nostalgia reasons. But or like, oh, it was the first, so it had to be good. But realistically, in comparison, if you're looking at Generation 1, in comparison to the games that came out years later, the ones that came out years later were better because they had more time to like reformulate and figure out what was working, what wasn't, and make them bigger and better. Legends Arceus is going to be exactly that. So right now people are like, oh, well, they changed the formula, so it's good, yada, yada. But I think the current formula is not quite there. I think it's a pretty boring gameplay loop. But I think if they keep expanding on it, once we get to whatever Legends Arceus 3 is, I don't know how they're going to build upon it, like what order they do, I have no clue. But once they get to like the third or fourth one or something, it's going to be an infinitely better game. And people are going to look back and they're like, wow, Legends Arceus was boring, like unfinished. It just wasn't that great. There's very minimal, unless you want to just like keep throwing Pokeballs at things, which you have to build. Like it's just not fun, right? So that's my guess. That is what I know is going to happen.
So I would agree with you that in the case that Legends Arceus, I don't think what's it been 2 years or something like that. I guess
two in 4 days it'll be 2 years since it released.
Okay, so I don't think if you went into it blind today, I don't think it would hold up as well. However, it did set the groundwork for a lot of the implementations in Scarlet and Violet, like the roaming battles and the throwing of the Pokeball and all those things. But I also think it had some really bad things of it, like it introduced this catch a million copies of the same Pokemon mechanic that we have nowadays, that it never made sense to me when I was playing Legends Arceus. Why do I have to catch 25 Starlies to complete its Pokedex entries or whatever? Wow. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like, because how I've grown up, maybe I've been wrong the whole time, but like if you're playing red, blue, whatever, Oras, black and white, whatever, like when you got that Pokeball, you saw Alakazam Pokeball next to it. You saw it in the wild. You're like, okay, I don't need it because I already have one, right? It's not catch every Pokemon in existence. It's catch them all. It's get them all entered into your Pokedex entry. So, like, if I'm playing and I already caught a Muck one time. I already caught a Gloom one time. I don't need to catch 15 Glooms in order, to play the game to complete the Pokedex. So now that we have that, and now like our barbecues, as we call them, right? In the DLC is like, catch a dragon type, catch a Flygon, catch a steel type, catch a whatever. It's like, no, I don't want to catch a fourth Flygon. I already have 3 from 3 other missions that you told me to catch a Flygon on, like, so it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Also, I used to think way more highly of Legends Arceus until I had the caster battle with Daz for Regulation D, when I had to dig with the Ursaluna to find a peat block to evolve my my like 2-speed IV Ursaluna and it took me 3.5 hours to find a peak block. So before then, if you tweeted this before then, I think I would have been with the people with the pitchforks. But after those 3.5 hours, I was like, this is just brutal.
But see, that's like going back to the, I need to catch this many of this Pokemon. So I'm talking about like a bad gameplay loop. It's like, it's very bare bones in a lot of sense in that way, because realistically, in like the modern day games, which never makes sense with the let's send a Pokedex so we need the data. It has all the data because once you catch the thing, it shows everything there. That never made sense. That is completely different rant for a completely different game. But they could have done like even 10 different tasks for a Pokemon, needing to complete it once. Catch this Pokemon, watch this Pokemon sleep, watch it use this move, have it KO another Pokemon in battle. It could have had quite a few different ones to do once. Not use Aqua Jet 15 times. Yeah. I saw what it did the first time. I don't need to do it 14 more times. And I think it just makes the game unnecessarily grindy, because it looked like they were just trying to add things for you to do without actually thinking about if those things were satisfying or fun to do, which I think then going on forward, like I would love it if, like my example, I had to see all these different things about a Pokemon. Give me a checklist. I got to do all these different things once to like have that mastery, because each one of those is a new experience to be getting that information. Doing the same thing 15 times is not. So I stand by what I said. And also it comes down to, as much as people don't want to admit it, that some of the people that have been coming at me, everyone's entitled to their opinion. I didn't like Breath of the Wild or anything either, because it wasn't my type of game, and I feel like that one's gonna get me in a lot of trouble.
Well, it depends on how you phrase it, because you can at least, you might not like Breath of the Wild, but you can probably understand why it is well regarded, or the things that other people appreciate about that game. So it depends on how you phrase your Breath of the Wild. If you come out and say, it's not for me, I didn't enjoy the climbing and the weapon breaking and all those things. So if you say it like that, people are okay, I can understand what you're saying. But if you come out here and say, Breath of the Wild is the worst game since Donkey Kong 64, then people are going to get mad at you, because then that's not like a fair, criticism of the game.
You want to know what the difference is, though, between how you word it? You want to know the main difference? It's about 270,000 scenes on the tweets in the last 10 hours. That's the difference. You're not getting the reactions with how you word it.
The funniest part, though, is because literally so many tweets were like, rent due, huh? Oh, guess she needs to farm interaction. And then you don't even have Twitter Blue, so you're not even profiting off of your ignorance here today.
It's not even ignorance. It's how I feel. All right, let's not go that far.
I'm just kidding.
But yeah, that rent due comment, I don't think there's a way to say this without sounding like it's actually bothered me when it doesn't. The amount of people that just comment, rent due, I think is the funniest thing, because it's like, you can't handle someone disagreeing with you on the internet, so you assume it has to be for profit.
Well, sometimes people
simply said.
This isn't a you problem. This is an internet problem, that people do make salacious statements on the internet just to farm interactions. It does happen,
Yeah, but I don't have the little profile thing. I just, so I don't know. I just think it's funny.
And you say you're not getting ratioed. You're saying it's 50-50. All right. As of recording, I'm sure it's going to get crazy by the time we upload on Thursday. It's 800 likes. It's 370 replies and over 300 retweets, most of them being quote retweets. It's kind of crazy, those ratio numbers.
It's not a ratio, though, if people are agreeing with you. It is a 50-50. So let me go through some of the top comments I'm seeing. Gabby says, you also aren't a fan of Breath of the Wild, I'm assuming?
Yeah, Gabby was disappointed in you today.
Just an L take. Azul says it's the only good Pokemon game he's ever played. He said
Dude, that was hilarious.
Wheedle to Needle then says, Legends Arceus slander, let me retweet real fast. Billy's like, here's an L. Kara said I was correct. When you go through, Captain Kidd, this is the type of propaganda I'm here for. Jace Krell, so true.
Bro, Evan said Sierra due. L.
Yeah, I'm going through them. I'm
just saying, that's a big L. If Evan Latt, his name is Latt. He has an L in it. He knows,
But like, if I was getting ratioed, first off, either the comments or like the quote retweets would be higher, and they would be disagreeing. Like an actual successful ratio is if Gabby posted, "This is a pretty big L, Sierra," and then she got more likes than my tweet. That is how the ratio works. You can't just you can say it's controversial.
That's A type. That is a type of ratio. It's like a square and rectangle situation we got going on right now. It's not the only type of ratio. A type is if someone replies to you and gets more likes. That's a type of ratio. But your general post has been ratioed, is what I'm saying. In general. Though. But it has, because it's definitely more negative than positive, or disagreeing than you.
And the quote retweets is less than the comments, first off. And there is a bunch of just straight reposts on it too, not quote retweets. And some of the quote retweets are actually agreeing as well. So that's not a ratio. That's not a ratio.
It says the person getting ratio.
And if half of the quote retweets are just saying rent due, then it's especially not a ratio.
Well, they would disagree with you.
Comments. Not a ratio. I feel good about myself. It's fine.
Bro,
it's good stuff.
Some of these responses are crazy. Have you ever sat back and realized like some of the people that you might disagree with vehemently on other more serious topics in life are agreeing with you on this topic? How does that make you feel?
I feel that there's a lot more to be discussing than this tweet on the podcast, considering we have the Charlotte Regional Championships to talk about and Liverpool coming up. I feel like it's a good point to all of that right there. But hey, everyone's entitled to an opinion.
Hey, at least I got in on the memes, okay?
Yeah.
I got in with a pretty good post.
You did. Shout out to Moggy for making it for you. But
shout out to Moggy.
But yeah, if you want hot Pokemon opinions, you know where to find them. Hey, at least nobody can ever accuse me of being a shill, because I'm just very like...
It's true. You openly make fun of Quaxley on the official broadcast, so...
For LAIC, though, and I knew they were using content, I didn't. And I was like, no, don't forget about Quaxley, our perfect duck boy with the dumb hair, I was very nice.
What a day it's been. This is going to be a good episode, I feel it.
Well, we do have a lot to be talking about in terms of the Charlotte regionals just happening. Largest regional to date. And honestly, I think minus all of the tournament running issues itself, I think this was like the best tournament in a while. This one was a lot of fun, and you got to compete.
I was gonna say, is that coincidence? Because I wasn't, backstage. Oh, it was just so much fun backstage. Like it was. I liked everybody that was there. No,
Joe Brown wasn't there. It was a great time. But
I did come for like 5 seconds and say hi backstage. But I got to compete in my first regional since 2019, Hartford 2019, way before before the Switch Sword and Shield even existed, back in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. So it's been quite a while. I've been prepping hard. I got coaching. Shout out to the X9 Academy to try to help me build a cohesive team so I'd be prepared for the field and stuff. And I didn't do so hot. I went 2-5. But a lot of the losses were on me. There was like one loss that was just, I don't even get into it because that's why Pokemon is so heartbreaking. But for the most part, it was my mistakes and me learning from those matchups. So like, it's not too much of a bummer. Like I talked to it with Rosemary when she interviewed me. Like I would much rather lose when it's my mistake because I can improve off of it and I can acknowledge that this was my mistake. Like, but when it's out of your fate and your opponent crits an attack and my Metagross happens to get done or paralyzed 2 turns in a row, just random scenario that I'm making up. Totally didn't exactly happen in the game.
Just off
3.
the top of your head.
There's like 1 HP Entei that gets a crit and paralyzes me 2 turns in a row when he's at 1 HP. Random scenario. When those things happen, that's a little more frustrating. because that's out of my control. That's out of my opponent's control. That is just into the RNG simulators control, and that's not as fun. But I had an absolute blast out in the field. A lot of people came up to me. Like, it was funny because I had like a hat on and like a jacket and not a suit, right? Everyone sees me in a suit at every event. A lot of people didn't even recognize me. But then when I started talking, they were like, wait, I know that voice. And then it would like turn like two seats away and be like, oh, are you a caster? Blah, blah, blah. So I had a lot of fun this weekend. Even if the Pokemon didn't go so well, like my first one, my Jujutsu Kaisen sweatshirt, I got like 50 different people gave me compliments on my sweatshirt. So that felt good. But then overall, I took a lot of photos and like talked to some players, and people complimented the podcast and things. So, I had a great time.
I'm glad that you had a good time. So it's always fun being able to actually get out from behind the caster desk and compete, because it's definitely a really different situation there. So I just have to ask, because I know we were talking about it before, Charlotte, what was your final record again? Mine was 4-5 at Portland.
So what had happened was I was gonna drop at 2-4 just because the loss I had was just like I mentioned, the story I made up that I didn't make up. So I was gonna drop at 2-4, but I was like, you know what? I paid for 9 rounds, or I guess we had 10 or whatever. I was like, I'm just here anyway. It's not like I have to wait. All my friends are the casters anyway, so or judges. So I gotta wait for them to be done anyway. Why don't I just play it out? And then round 7, my opponent, it was their first regional, very nice guy. It was like, good luck. We get to game 3. We're going back and forth, all this stuff. And then, I get to the end game. I had 2 low rolls. That's why I tweeted on Saturday that damage rolls are an abomination, which I have felt for 20 years. I think it's ridiculous at this game. Like, your thoughts on Legends Arceus, are my opinions on damage rolls like tenfold. So my Flutter Mane, there was like a Terra Normal Dragonite at like 45%, and I click Dazzling Gleam, and I'm special attack booster, and I don't get the knockout. He lives on like 4 HP. And I'm like, oh my god, I could have Terra'd, but I was like, no, I don't want to Terra, because I'm obviously going to get the knockout, and then I don't get it, and then Dragonite gets a big KO. Then we get to the end game, and my first Stomping Tantrum from Metagross into a King Gambit does 55%. Okay? That's a lot of damage. If you do the math, I should be doing 110% damage to that King Gambit the next attack. So I call the Sucker Punch Mind Games right, and I'm like, he's going to kowtow because he doesn't think Sucker will knock out. And I'm like, yes, I got it. Stomping Tantrum. Oh, yes, I'm going to win the game. King Gambit lives on 5. Not even 1. Lives on 5. So I went from 55% to him living on 5. And my opponent apologized to me. He was like, I'm sorry that you lost this game. I don't even know how I lived that hit. And I was like, hey, you don't need to apologize. You did the good thing. Like, you trained your Pokemon
needs
well.
To apologize.
Absolutely. But like, my opponent shouldn't feel bad. He trained his Pokemon well for that exact situation, right? Like, you did the correct thing. So there's no reason for you to apologize there. But I was literally so like out of it in that moment that I was going to play all the rounds just for fun, but I was like, get me out of this building. And I just dropped and I went back to the hotel because I was so fuming.
I feel like
my opponent was a good sport. I will give him credit. He was a very good sport.
That's good. I feel like too. I mean, it's tough because like I feel bad when my opponent apologizes to me, but at the same time, I understand like what else do they feel like they're supposed to do in that moment, and then you'd also feel bad if he's like, "Oh yeah, man, GG."
Oh, it didn't matter.
You'd also be like upset then. So it's just kind of one of those like.
Yeah, I had good sportsmanship.
That's not the right word, but.
What are your thoughts? Does this ever happen to you, Sierra, like in Portland? Okay. Or anywhere else, maybe in Liverpool might happen this weekend. So you sit down, you go on your opponent, you connect the game, you're all ha ha ha, having fun pre-game, and then it gets serious. And then you transition your team sheets, right? And you're like, okay. And I'm like, all right, good luck, have fun. And then it's just like this, and they go, have fun. Does that ever happen to you, where they deliberately don't say good luck?
Well, they should be saying good luck. Like, that's always the thing. I know for myself. So, like, not the same, but when I compete, I definitely just, what's the right way to put it? I like hyper like focus in on the game. So, and there is a lot of times where my opponent maybe is chatty to where it would be like distracting for me to where I don't want to like talk. So I'll talk beforehand, but as soon as we start getting into menus, I put headphones in, like swap the things and like take one out. Oh, good luck, have fun. And then like I won't talk to them for like the entire rest of the set. And if they talk to me, I'll ignore them. Not because I'm trying to be rude or anything, but just
Yeah.
because I'm trying
But
to
I'm talking pregame,
play
like
the
you're
game.
about to load into game 1 team preview, and I go, good luck, have fun for the fist bump, and you deliberately respond, have fun. Like you see it on Showdown and other things all the time. Like that mindset is so funny to me because like, do you really think you're shifting the dynamic of the luck in the set by not wishing me good luck? Like, you know what I mean? Like, no,
Maybe.
I'm storing all the good luck and I will get the dazzling gleam crits and you shall receive no critical hits. Like, I
No
don't
crit
even
for you.
understand players' mindsets that deliberately only say have fun. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. You're trying to be a good sport.
Yeah, unfortunately, not everyone's a good sport. You know, we're chalking up, quite frankly, just to that. But
It's just so funny to me. I was like, oh, okay.
I don't know.
I guess I shouldn't have wished you good luck. My bad, dude.
Maybe if you had, if you had wished you luck, maybe you'd have gotten it. I've joked with my
No, this
opponents
is
about not like giving them luck before. Like, if I play someone day 1 and then day 2 at like the MSS for them, all the scrubs. I played against the same person. I joked at Portland because I had missed a lot of moves on my one opponent, and I played him again first round the MSS. I'm like, I'm not wishing you good luck this time, buddy.
Yeah, that's fair. That's different. Yeah.
But that's always been in good fun, and that's been someone like they've been laughing and joking about it too. Like, yeah, don't blame you, man. Like, yeah, but it's okay. Was it good experiences otherwise though?
Yeah. Like it was actually very interesting to be a part of the round 1 kerfuffle that like, seeing in the
No.
everybody like, oh, I hear round 1 is delayed, like seeing like Caster saying that and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I can, I'm out here. I'm not getting there at 10 a.m. right? I'm there at 8 a.m. getting ready for round 1. And it was so weird because we were all just sitting there and none of the stations had power. And like half of the tables couldn't connect to the internet, and we're all just like, well, what do we do? There's 800 people here. Like, are they going to go one by switch by switch to make sure it works? But I guess someone flipped the switch somewhere and figured it out after like a 45-minute delay. So I felt bad for you guys that you guys had to start the stream in like kind of an awkward position, but it was funny that I got to experience it. What?
Do you know how we started this off? How we started stream off? Was to a floor interview with me and Dawes.
Yes.
Because I couldn't pull the casters. We were going to pull you, but you were still playing your match. And we couldn't use the lounge because a game that it was actually functioning properly.
Right.
So we were literally like, oh, what do we do? And then I was like joking, we can get Dawes. And then our producer's like, Dawes, you want to go on air? Dawes is like, yeah, sure. And he's like, all right. Dawes is like, wait, what?
It was
really?
When I found out, like I saw him backstage and he was like, guess who's on the VG stream today? And I was like, what? Like I was not expecting it all. But like when I finished my round 2 match and I was really into it and I lost that set, but it was like a really fun set. And I'm like back and forth. I'm like, all right, I'm just in the zone the whole time. And GG's, blah, blah, like, good luck in the rest of the rounds, blah, blah. And I like sit up. And I see a stream liaison and a Paperlight producer just standing behind me. I'm like, how long have you been here?
You've been like, waiting?
Hey, you want to like go to the stage real quick now that your game's over? I was like, all right, sure.
Like, I guess. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we were a little desperate for some content, We had some time to fill. Originally, too, we were kind of looking at the possibility of getting a round 2 match, which there was 3 Slitherwings that competed at this event. And I was like, yo, if one of these Slitherwings wins their first round, can we please look at the potential to get them pulled for round 2? And all 3 of them lost their first round.
That's
so it
brutal.
can never even be a question. We'll never...
Honestly, I felt bad because I let you down personally by losing my first 2 matches because you said if I was 2-0, you would have tried to fight to get me on the Twitch chat poll. So literally, when I lost round 1, I wasn't even upset that I lost. I was upset. I was like, man, now Sierra can't pull for me on the on the stream.
There was a point where all he had to do was win the 1-2. It didn't even have to be. Man, we could have had you versus Silverwing Guy, and instead, unreal. But hey, we did see some winning this weekend, and that was
not by me.
That was not by you,
which was predicted by the couch, by the lounge. By the way, very hurtful. Thank you.
Okay, I want it to be known that our producer told me to be extra mean to you in my earpiece. And then I thought I'd been too mean to you. He was like, be brutal. He's like, you call it the podcast, just be brutal. And then I felt mean, so we're like, we're sending him our energy. We do hope that it'll win.
The damage was done, no.
Yeah, I felt mean. It's okay. It's because I didn't want you to be the better podcast host in terms of...
No, but that's why I dropped at the 5th loss. Because now, like, I talked it over with TJ, who was the judge, that I'm friends with. And it's like, well, if I drop it 2-5, we never know what would have happened in those next 2 rounds. We don't know definitively. I could have went 4-5. We'll never know.
Could have. Probably wouldn't have. But could have.
But could have, definitely.
But no, we got to talk about the rest of the event and parts that made it so insane. So this was the largest regional ever. And if anybody remembers, the last time we had an event that we could call the largest regional ever was Orlando Regionals last season. And Wolf Glick won that. And then all of a sudden he hears largest regional ever again? Gotta go win it, I guess. And just shows up and wins the event. Crazy. Like, did you get to see any of the broadcast? Like,
I was very fortunate. So I don't know what happened, if there was like a delay on stream on day 2 or something, but so I took an early flight home and everyone was like dogging me for it all weekend. I was like, no, but I can get home in time and watch the Chiefs and the Chiefs and Bills game because I took a 2:00 flight. It was like 2:30, I guess, home. And as I landed in Newark, the finals was starting. So I got into the car and got to watch all of the finals. So I missed out on a lot of the other matches. I missed out on the Pokemon Stadium mini games and everything, but I did get to see the finals.
Good stuff, right? Because that finals, in my opinion, was super hype.
Yeah, for sure. That was... honestly, I'm just floored with how kind of similar but different the strategies were, right? And they both had Wolf with the Hearth Flame, like kind of out of nowhere. It doesn't even, at first doesn't feel like a Wolf Pokemon, but then when you see some of the other stuff that he's brought to a lot of events, like for example, he's brought Chi-Yu to a lot of events, right? So you can kind of see Hearth Flame Ogerpon acting as like a fire nuke attacker the same way that Chi-Yu does. It's different roles, but like kind of filling the same role at the same time. So the more I evaluated Wolf's team, I remember he had Farigiraf at Worlds too, and was lost that winning in round against Shiliang on day 1. So like bringing back the Farigiraf was a great storyline too, because like you would have thought maybe he drops it, but now he wins the largest regional ever with it. Like that was a cool story.
Well, the Farigiraf is also everywhere, but we'll get to that one in a due time. But I think too, what made this event super, super cool with this run was talking about finals. It was Wolf versus a player who had never day 2'd before, like Nicholas Denali. I butchered his name so many times in front of him, but I said it right every time on air. So that is good there. But it was actually such a cool, like, underdog story that was taking place. Was this player who had made day 2. He went on a flawless run through the tournament, except for his losses to Wolf, which was insane. Wolf went 9-0 on day 1, and Nicholas went 8-1, only losing to Wolf. Then Wolf took a loss in day 2 Swiss later on. He went 12-0 first. Nick literally won every single Swiss round on day 2, which there were 6 rounds of Swiss because the tournament was so huge, and he only lost once to Wolf. And then, of course, made it through his top 8, gets to finals, took Wolf to a game 3. Like, Wolf won the first game, Nick won the second, and it came down to like a 50-50-ish, if I remember right, in game 3. Like, it was so intense. And pardon due to the fact that this was the largest regional ever, but sometimes the crowds that watch the finals aren't too big or too lively. It really just depends on who's there in the event. It was insane how packed it was for the VGC area. Like, it was, everyone's so crowded together. It went so far back into the tables with everyone just trying to watch this match. Everyone was so into the match. It was honestly such a cool atmosphere because you don't really get that at every single event. It really, really does depend. And you could hear people like celebrating and popping off with like the different turns. It was amazing. Like, I really hope we can have more events with like that sort of atmosphere going forward.
Yeah, that for sure had the esports atmosphere that we're like always craving, right? Or we have to kind of wait till we get to international events with a lot of open seating and a lot of chairs available for people. So like that was pretty cool. Even just like walking around on Saturday and Sunday, the area of the VG stream was kind of like, there were kind of like 3 pillars that separated the 3 streams, and like the VG one was going like out all the way up to the judge tables, and like everybody was watching. So that it's such a cool story because it's like the David versus Goliath, right? Great, most regional championships ever versus someone's first ever day 2 in the finals. Like it was such a really cool story, and obviously props to Aaron and Rose in the finals doing a great job on the commentary, making it as exciting as possible. So it was overall, I think we had like a really good weekend for the game of Pokemon VGC. Like Charlotte 2 years in a row now has had two great storylines and great runs, honestly. And like, you can imagine even next year's Charlotte, like maybe the numbers will be even higher. I don't know if it's physically possible. I don't know how many more people we can fit in that venue, but it might be even bigger.
Hopefully, because I mean, Charlotte does have like a little bit of that perfect storm with it being pretty good location for this sort of event. It's pretty easy for a lot of people to get to, but just considering, I think Overload Events posted like a comparison of last year's numbers to this year's number. For VGC, we had about 100, 150 more. TCG had like 900 more players.
Yeah.
Like, incredible. So it's really, really cool to see kind of like the growth of the game and kind of imagine where that could go going forward, right? So, I don't know. I'm
I guess it's like glass half full, glass half empty on your perspective, right? Because we do have an upcoming regional with quite the low player cap, and if we're playing in Vancouver in the same building every year, and it's not like the building isn't getting any bigger every time we get it, if the game is growing at a record pace, so we go from 2,100 TCG players in Charlotte to, I think their cap is 800 or something in Vancouver. It's like, maybe we get some bigger venues or go to cities that have bigger venues in the future.
I'd be hopeful that we can start going to places that have bigger venues and stuff. I feel like it's hard because knowing the background context of it, the organizers have to be putting in a lot of money, and venues have to be booked a long time in advance. It isn't something that like, oh, this is 6 months. Like, this is stuff that gets put in planning for a hot second. So I feel like with that in mind, it's kind of unrealistic to expect kind of right out of COVID while the game is still growing to all of a sudden be getting these bigger venues. But I feel like in the next year or 2 is where we could actually start to see that change, right? Start to actually see these bigger venues come together, start to see that we'll actually be able to have bigger player caps. I think the next biggest issue for VGC is going to be the Hori stands, in all honesty, because that one seems to be problematic. But maybe with the Switch Pro that's rumored for the end of the year, then maybe that's a non-issue, or maybe that is going to be the biggest issue, you know? So, I don't
Time
know.
will tell. Yeah.
Only
Plus,
time
who
will
knows
tell.
if like the new Switch is. Yeah, obviously, I would assume it's compatible, but like, are we gonna have to start noting like how we had to used to with like the 3DS versus like the flat 2DS that you couldn't use? Like, are we gonna have to start noting people who are on Switch ones versus Switch twos and all these things? Like, those are problems for future us to deal with, you know.
Yeah, I feel like it might be an issue, but hey, it wouldn't be if we just got a spectator mode. Hey yo. But nah, it is cool because I think too, if there is going to be more atmospheres, I think the stream numbers were higher than they ever were. A little bit of Wolf Glick effect, you know what I mean?
For
But
sure.
I feel like that's so good for the game because there is some bigger creators that we do have come to the events, and I think as that only moves on, as creators find their stride and become bigger, as we get these bigger heroes in the game, that we get these better stories. And I think that was the biggest kind of thing coming out of this weekend too, on a stream perspective, was because I'm not gonna lie, our day one matches, we didn't have a single game 3 at all. It was all 2-0s. There were some pretty clean 2-0s. Like, people kind of, there's some that got smacked around, right? Which then generally makes for a more boring broadcast because it's less matches, because all of a sudden we have to fill out this downtime. And if somebody from like the first turn is just set to win the game, it doesn't make anything exciting, right? But what really made day 2 exciting, even though there was some of these two-sided matches, was the fact that there was really, really compelling storylines that you were intrigued about. You wanted to know more. You wanted to know about Nick's run, this kid who had never made day 2 and was now taking down everybody except for the biggest person in the game. Like, can he take down his tournament demon? Also, your tournament demon is Wolf Lick, who has won, like, at that point, 7 regionals, world champ, you know? And there's so many different kind of stories going on through that after everything wrapped up, it was like, wow, like, that was dope. Like, that was a finals I was excited for. That was a whole storyline that I was excited for. It it was just really awesome, and you don't really get those storylines without good storytelling from the broadcast, which is obviously something we aim to do, but also when the players show more personality, or we know that they have one based off of, like, their online presence, based off their content and stuff. It really helps this sort of stuff come to life. It was cool to see it pay off with, like, broadcast numbers and stuff.
Yeah, the other thing I had noticed, because I'd went on YouTube at one point, because when I was at the airport, it was actually funny one time. Sorry, just lift the curtain a little. Sierra texted me because we were just talking in the venue at one point at like noon or something, and then she texted me, was like, "Oh, hey, are you around? Did you see who we were talking to before? Like, do you know where they are right now?" And then I just texted her a photo of me boarding for my flight. I was like, no, I'm not in the venue anymore. I can't check for you. She's like, oh, geez, so sorry I left you on your own in that case. But I put the YouTube stream on because I can get Twitch to work. And, excuse me, even YouTube had quite the viewership. And this was pre-Wolf's match. Like, this was the last round. I can't remember who played in the last round of Swiss, but that's when I started boarding the flight. Was after the last round of Swiss.
It was last round of Swiss was Toller Webb. I forget who he was playing against, but he was Toller.
So even in that, we had like huge viewership numbers on YouTube, and that's an audience that I think gets ignored a lot because a lot of people just look at just the excuse me, sorry, I'm coughing. They just look at the Twitch number because, as we say Twitch chat chooses the match, and oh, Twitch chat, what do you think? And all these things. That YouTube is a big audience there, and the biggest credit, I think, to our storytelling, Sierra, and our ability to have this dynamic, entertaining broadcast where we, know these characters and know these players and root for them, is that we cover every single event. Like, one of the dark ages of competitive Pokemon in Gen 7 was that there was like 4 regionals covered the entire year by the official stream, and then just the ICs and Worlds. And then Oh my god, I apologize. What's going crazy with me?
You're struggling.
I'm passionate. Then the start of the 2020 season where we had the one stream sharing both the VG and TCG games, right? And so like both communities were unsatisfied with that vision, right? So like the ability for us to cover, what was it, Pittsburgh into Peoria, into Sacramento, into Toronto, into LAIC, like all of these things, we develop the characters and the storylines naturally. We've seen Jody on stream and his fun antics. We've seen Justin Karras win his first regional last year in Charlotte, and now Toller Webb is team building with Justin in Charlotte. Like, there's so many things that we benefit from storytellers because we cover all the broadcasts now.
And it's nice to see with that how far that can really, really go. So, for example, an interview prior to finals, because we needed a little time building, I interviewed like friends of the finalists, which then Nick was somebody that relatively like on the broadcast end of things was someone that we didn't actually really know anything about before this event. He hadn't been streamed from my recollection. You don't know anything about him. But then seeing in the past that like who Nick had been hanging out with, you get to see like friends, because obviously there's a bunch of different groups in the community. So I ended up pulling Justin Tang and Marcus Dion on stream to talk about Nick, which then I thought was really interesting because then it kind of story builds a little bit more, which is something that if we weren't covering all these events, we might not know these relationships. And there's always something new that we're learning every day, which I think is just really interesting in terms of how we're able to kind of flesh out this world, because that's the only way that people are going to care about it too, right? Like, if you're having a bad regulation, well, what's going to stop, like, keep people tuning in, right? Like, there has to be like these stories somewhere.
Yeah, and Tang is obviously a great pull in that context, as Nick was trying to do what Tang did last, not the exact same thing of not his first event, but his first day too. So like the new guy in that quote unquote perspective, like that's why Tang makes sense to interview in that. So because Nick would add himself to that storyline the same way that Tang did, in the same way, the same way that Abdullah did as well with Vancouver. Like it's not unheard of now anymore, because we cover all of these storylines, for a player to quote unquote come out of nowhere and win a large regional. And obviously, like, even though he didn't beat Wolf, like it's pretty darn tough to beat Wolf in a finals, So like, just Nick was still able to stamp his name like in this game, and going forward, like that's a name now that when you're scrolling through the pairings looking for matches, like you got Nick versus Alex Underhill or something for the win, and it, like, that could be an exciting match, So it's cool that Charlotte we've now gained a new name to keep track of in the season.
Yeah, and it's one of the things too that I see a lot of criticism towards with the matches that we get pulled is that there'll be a lot of like the same names being pulled, or we don't necessarily give it a spotlight for newer players. Then that's a really tough like thing, because the problem is, if we're going back on the storytelling, the stories of these people making their way through the tournament is the most interesting part. There was 383 people on day one. We're trying to highlight people while also telling a story and all these things, and you can get it right with a newer player and stuff. That's really, really cool. I think Abdullah did end up getting streamed on day one of Vancouver, ended up obviously winning the event, and it was something that got picked up on like early enough, right? But that isn't always the case. And if all of a sudden people are criticizing for, oh, well, you pulled this new person at 3-0 and they ended off the event at 3-6, then it's kind of the tough place of where to stand, because at the same time, if you pull a name, then you also get, like, I don't know. It creates a lot of weird
trust
issues,
thing, right? And unfortunately, we don't know we don't know who we don't know. And we don't know how certain players will play on stage, right? There are also players that don't like being on stream. So usually it's a trust factor, and we trust that this bigger name, quote unquote, that's been playing the game competitively since 2013 and playing at the highest level and has won 2 regionals, or whatever justifications we come up for choosing a player for that match, for that round. Like, we're trusting that player is going to put on in entertaining matchup there. And that's why it's so tough when it's like, oh, why don't you pull this guy who's 6-0 that we've never heard of. It's like, it's tough because you only get one crack at it, and we don't have future sight. We cannot tell what's going to happen in the future. Like, we could choose that guy in 6-0 and he gets dumpstered the same way that we can choose a player we show every single broadcast and they can also lose, get destroyed 2-0. So it's just a crapshoot at the end of the day, and you have to like go with your gut and go with what you trust will be the better, more entertaining match for the audience.
Well, I'm hoping, and I won't say what it is, but I gave out a suggestion at Charlotte, which actually I don't think there's any reason why I couldn't say the suggestion. So I suggested with the community votes, because currently we do a community vote round 3, round 9, round whatever we start with, and our final round of Swiss, maybe?
Sometimes it's top 8 if it's not the last round of Swiss.
Yeah. So I suggested that we do round 3, 4, 5, and 3, 4, and 5 as and round 6 as community votes. And then round 7 on, every one where there's a win-in or better is all up to the casters. That way there could be fun and wacky stuff happening for the first couple of rounds, and then it can get, a little crazy, a little out of control for the earlier ones.
It's interesting because, it could, power to the people, right? And everyone in chat, like, I want to promote this player or whatever. But, like, at the same time, like, I don't know if I am the biggest Twitch chat vote fan, because people do say, like, it does end up a lot of times being the same people, and, like, understandably so. Like, I want to watch Justin Tang, I want to watch Joe Ugarte, I want to watch Paul Chua. Like, these are the names that I know and I'm excited to see.
But we only put down
stream.
the teams and Pokemon, not the player names.
But then you're gonna, like, I don't know, then you might discredit a player for using standard team. If they're using like a balanced squad, like, they're just not gonna get on stream, and just out of like a Pokemon bias, depending on matchup. Like, it's kind of tough.
But then we have the ability to override as well. Like, so
democracy in theory.
No. But realistically, the casters are still the ones picking those 4 matches, right? And we already, like, if Wolf's at the event, unless he's playing against, like, Wolf's going up against Aaron Zeg, we're not pulling Wolf round 3 anyways, right? We're waiting for one of these big storyline matchups for later on in the day. So realistically, we're not actually dissing any one of these big name players with the regular team, because we see them later.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it is tough. Like, I think there are some scenarios where you can get Wolf in round 4 just because it makes sense. If he's, like you said, playing
going
Aaron.
Up against Aaron, Cybertron, Zhang,
Right. I mean, I think if they're playing round 1, we just start the stream. We just put the capture card on and just hit play and let the audio run. Like, nobody's there yet, but like, we gotta have that match recorded for round 1.
Oh yeah. Also, real fast, what is a Riolu set to do? I'm just like casually queuing Showdown on the side, and somebody just led Urshifu and Riolu. Like, okay. What is this thing about to do?
So it has Prankster, so it's probably Prankster coaching, increase the Urshifu's attack and defense. It also can get the funniest set is that I ever faced back in Gen 6 was Screech Riolu, but I don't think that's what you're going to be facing over against.
Quick guard. I don't even have a priority move.
Well, man, that's the issue. They're running Riolu. They don't have a. This is closed team sheet? They denied the open team sheets.
We both just like handshook on the "I'm not going to answer you."
What? I always hit accept every single time.
Oh, well. Can't.
I'm trying to be honest. I'm trying to be on the up and up, you know?
That's true. You're stronger than I am.
Have they come up with, have they used any other moves yet? What does Shifu do?
Their Shifu just did Surging Strikes, but I said Sunny Day. And apparently, the Riolu's name is Little Goober, and it has Rain Dance. So it set Rain Dance, but then I just killed the Urshifu, and I'm just gonna set Sun again, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah,
Absolutely countered.
Yeah, this is some weird stuff. All right, let's see what Little Goober does. Oh, he did coaching on their not Delibird, as they'd like to call their Iron Bundle, which did exactly 20% damage into my Terrifier Walking Wake, and he conceded. So,
well, there we go.
Right, I'm focused now.
We're all caught up. Thank you, Riolu, for the distraction.
That was wow. I don't even know. But
imagine you face Riolu round 1 in Liverpool, and now you're like, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
One match has prepared me for this, dude. I had one, like, there were some matches like. Just all right. Let's get into the analysis portion of the podcast here, Sierra. Okay. So like we talk about either certain teams or the day one usage, you know, whatever you want to talk about here. But there were some Pokemon that like I was playing and testing, and I just never faced. Like I hardly faced Archaladon whatsoever. And my first round opponent, of course, has an Archaladon, and I'm just not that. Like I don't know my best play into it because like I don't want to Stomping Tantrum and give it a stamina boost. You know, it was like okay, well Flutter Mane I guess is like a neutral Moonblast into it, but it's holding Assault Vest, so it was like a tough call. But then I lost the match because I like had just started KOing everything else next to Archaladon. I'm like that's how I'm gonna deal with this, and I got really confident. I'm like all right. Terra Fairy Moonblast, let's go, you know. Shout outs to my shiny Katie who underperformed this week, and I told her backstage, I was like, you let me down, Katie, you missed a crucial damage roll on that Dragonite, and she was like, I'm sorry. I was like, don't let it happen again, you know?
Don't let it happen again. All right, that's only your boss, but keep going.
Yeah, and then, so, that game, I terrored the Flutter Mane, and then, because I didn't have Terra Grass available later for the Incineroar, I lost, because Archaladon was just able to body press and knock me out as the Dark type. So, like, that's one of those things I'm talking about, like, now I have that matchup knowledge. Now I'm ready to I understand, like, Terra Grass is really important against Archaladon for my Incineroar to help sweep and do parting shots to lower his attack, you know, from the electric shots and stuff. And I'm, like, pumped. And then I never faced another Archaladon for the rest of the day. And I'm like, what's going on? And then, like, you know, when I put my team together, originally I was Terra Water Metagross when I was doing my coaching, right? And it was like, oh, there's going to be Terra Water, is going to be so much Rillaboom, there's going to be so much Raging Bolt, like all these priority attacks into your Metagross, like you're just going to get, you know, dunked from the, like, that's a good point. And I was like, but if I go Terra Dragon, then I lose to Chien-Pao because he either Sucker Punches me as my normal typing or Ice Spinners me as a Dragon type. He's like, yeah, but, you know, think about the Thunderclap, think about the Grassy Glide. And I faced 0 Raging Bolt, but I faced 7 Chien-Pao in 7 rounds. So it's like, I just had the worst meta call ever. I don't know what to... Ogrepon's at half of the field. Flutter Mane's back up to 68%. Chien-Pao falls off the graphic on day 2 when it's the 3rd most used day 1. Tornadus is back to 36 when it was at 20 in Portland. Like, I don't know what is going on with this meta at all, Sierra.
Yeah, I just want to say that you and Alex Underhill clowned me for asking as one of our OHKO predictions if Farigiraf was going to be on the day 2 usage and what would it be at. And y'all were like, it's not making day 2 usage. I will have you know that it did make day 2 usage, and not like in that 12th place spot, 20% of the fields with Farigiraf on day 2, which is incredible. It was 16.5% on day 1, barely squeaking onto the graphic, 20% in day 2, almost in the top line. So, like, I'm ready for my apology at any point, frankly.
Well, you're certainly not getting an apology. I will give you credit. I'll give you credence to your great prediction. As you literally, the question was, will Farigiraf make day 2 graphic? And if so, what percentage? And you said yes, 19.5%. So you were essentially as close as physically possible.
19.5%
to being correct.
crazy.
So I will give you credit where it's due. However, we also have to give Alex Underhill credit because remember, our first question was Ogerpon Wellspring day one usage. And he said like 45% or something. And both of us, don't put this on me. Both of us were like, whoa, Alex, 45%, that's really high. He's like, okay, fine, 40%. And it ended up being 47% and then 49% on day two. So like Alex deserves a lot of credit too. That was a perfect call on Ogerpon.
Yeah, so I will apologize to Alex, and I expect both of y'all to slide in with an apology. 19.5 for Graph.
Dude, this was not my weekend.
So good.
How many Entei in top 8? I said 3. There were none.
Falling off.
Dude, I just completely, I don't know, freaking Amoonguss went back to 35%. Like, I don't know what. Dude, Urshifu's single strike is at 35% of day 2, and Rapid Strike was only 30. What is going on?
Chaos everywhere.
Literally, though, how else can you explain this format right now?
I don't know. It's interesting. The more I play this format, the more I'm like, ugh, I don't like playing this format. But it has been kind of fun to watch. What's been happening. It's I don't know. I am very intrigued to see what's going to be happening for Liverpool. We'll get to that in a little bit here because, of course, we're still talking about.
Oh, sorry. There was one Entei. So again, you are correct on that guess as well.
Did I just totally sweep the predictions?
So let's see. So Ogerpon day 1 usage, Alex won that one. Fergraph, obviously, you won that one. Deepest Incineroar Amoonguss pairing, I believe, is top 8 because there's only one Amoonguss in top 8, and they have an Incineroar. Both you and Alex said top 8 for that, so that's a split point. How many Entei in top 8? You said 1. That's the correct answer. And then I guess nobody gets the who will win, right? Because nobody came close out of our guesses. So I think you are the Charlotte predictions winner. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm gonna be right.
You know what? I guess Legends Arceus is mid after all. I guess that's
Sarah's always right. What can I say? The tweet's sticking up well. I'm not gonna lie, but hey, I don't know. I'm just better than everyone. I'm kidding. I don't know I forget what TikTok it is. Oh, what is that? Like, am I just better than everyone? How I feel when it's coming to the OHKO predictions right now. We don't talk about the weeks where I've been very poorly wrong at all. No siree.
No, for sure. Only the dubs in this chat. Dude, Indeedee made the graphic day 2. We said there was we remember I said, I was like, I think Indeedee's more likely to make the graphic than Fergraph, and then they both made it in day 2. So crazy.
Pretty high percent too, honestly. Like 17.3 for Indeedee.
Yeah.
Pretty nuts. And there was a lot of Iron Crown running around. Not enough to warrant a graphic or anything, but I don't know. That seemed like a pretty annoying Pokemon over like the duration of the weekend. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I mean, shout outs to Justin Karras and Toller Webb and his team of team builders for having like what I think is like the least surprising plot twist of all time when Justin tweeted like, "Oh, Size Spam can only win if a really good player plays it," and then he brought Size Spam to Charlotte, and everyone is like, "Wow, I can't believe you said this. You said only." And I was like, well, immediately when I saw his first tweet before Charlotte, I knew in my head because I know Justin. I was like, "Oh, he's playing Size Spam and letting everybody know without letting everybody know."
Be like that. Sometimes they really do betray you, huh?
And then Toller did a great job winning in, making it to top 8, defending his North Carolina roots well. So, Toller's one of my favorite people in the world. And when I got on my flight, I DM'd him. I was like, "Thank you for allowing me to visit your state. Best of good luck in top 8.
It was nice too, because Toller was the winning match, and it basically, we weren't 100% sure with how the math was going to stack up. We don't have guaranteed math numbers if something will be a win and in. We really do look at it. We really, really, really do try our best. Doesn't always work out. And he ended up winning in, but we didn't know if he was actually top 8 or not. He didn't know either. And I had asked production, I was like, hey, like, if you get word of this before, like, while I'm interviewing, please let me know so I can let him know. And he had heard me say this production too, and I didn't give an update by the time the interview was done. I felt so bad because he's just like, I won, but I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And I'm like, at least you did the best chance you could to get yourself in that position. And then he made it, so I was really happy because that's how I've done one of those wrong winning in interviews before, and it's painful. It hurts, you know. So I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, for sure. That's obviously an awkward feeling. Like, he's on top of the world, and oh, I'm so happy to make it in Top Cut, and then they finished 9th or something. Which poor one out for Rajan finishing 9th. You know.
Yeah. And like with the interview with like Toller, I right away said to like, hey, we don't know. I mean, he knew that there was no definitive answer yet, but I even said in the interview, I was like, I don't know yet. I feel like the worst one was was it Pittsburgh, where James Evans bubbled at 9th, and he was
after he beat Joe, right?
Yep. And I was literally looking at like the group chat where they were crunching numbers right when we were about to go live, and finding out right then, it's like seconds before going live, that he bubbled. Like, this is before Pokemon had gotten the proper numbers or anything. So the entire interview, it was just like really basic mainline things like, oh yeah, and how'd you find out this team for the event and stuff like that, because I didn't want to bring up anything about like, you won this match and you could be top 8, because I think at that point he thought he was top 8. I can't quite remember if he realized that he might not or not, but yeah, it was like, I felt so bad. And then after the interview done, was like, hey buddy, like, I gotta tell you, you didn't actually make it. I feel so bad, especially after you like interview them, right? I think that happened with Najit at Portland as well.
Yeah.
The interview into the sorry.
Oof, I heard that sorry. I felt that one in my body. The Canadian coming out. But listen, James Evans has had many moments in the spotlight, but he wasn't everybody's favorite Evans this weekend, because we got Senor Evans on the broadcast. My dude, you got to interview him, and everybody was going crazy.
Like, not exaggerating on everybody either, because even on like Pokemon's end, they were like, oh my gosh, this interview is awesome. So something we got to implement we got to implement it at Portland as well. I didn't get to work Portland, but I have been begging for a roaming camera for like a year and a half. I always
can confirm.
I'm like, yes, I am very passionate yet annoying about what I think could be improved. I'm like, I want to do floor interviews out in the crowd. Can you follow with me a camera and I can sit there in the crowd? I think I really started going ham on the idea at OCIC, and it was always like a no because lighting, no because we don't have this technology, no because we can't do this. And they finally figured it out. So they got to use it at Portland. I didn't work Portland, so I didn't get to use it. But I really got to use that roaming camera for this event. And the analyst role, it just became 10 times harder because you're being pulled in every which way direction with this roaming camera, let me tell you. And sometimes they're like, we just need you to fill and we don't know what we're doing. So I just like walk over, I find the camera, it's in front of the prize wall. I'm like, am I interviewing someone? And they're just like, oh. I'm like, what am I doing
that
here?
Shrug, I know that shrug. That is an accurate portrayal. Honestly, for any of our audio listeners, you missed out on quite top-notch shrugging.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, okay, what am I, like, how long am I filming? It's like, I don't know. And I'm like, am I just gonna talk about the prize wall? They're like, sure. And I'm like, can I go in there and talk about it at least? They're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, okay, do we know how much time I have to fill? Like, no. And then I'm like, okay, cool, my IBF, like the thing that feeds my director cues to my ear, I'm like, it doesn't work from there at this point. And they're like, I guess we're like manually like cueing you.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm just like, yeah. Fantastic.
My first thought, once we introduced the floor cam, when it's like, It's one of those, be careful what you wish for, Sierra, because I agree with you that the host role just got significantly harder. And I already felt like it was the hardest role of the group, because you are on every round. You don't get a break. You have to watch the match. You have to have notes. You have to be prepared for just the winner interview of that round. Now you have to be, not only do you have to be backstage watching the match and taking notes and being prepared for it, but you need to be front of house at the exact same time, developing relationships and storylines with the players in the building, so you know when to interview them and when to bring them on, and on the floor camera. Like, so you got to be two places at once and being pulled everywhere. So I think it's a great addition to the broadcast, and it really does add to the atmosphere. Like when you're watching at home, you're like, oh man, this feels like a big event. It feels everyone's in the background waving, and this feels like a real esports event. So it adds to the dynamic of the broadcast, but like it already makes the toughest role even more difficult.
See, I feel like the host is the easier role. I think too that's just like I'm more used to hosting than casting at this point, so it's kind of a easier slot. Like the watching the match and the interviewing questions. Like I watch every match, but I am confident that I could sit there and do an interview without watching the match. Obviously, it's not as in depth, which is why I do want to fully watch the match to get the best interview. But if they pull me, I'm confident I could come back and do the interview. But it was some of the segments that were like happening, which also made it difficult. So there was a juniors champion and a seniors champion interview, which I think is so cool that we did, because we don't get to know enough about these players. And admittedly, because I don't follow either of those age divisions, because the only time we see them, which is at ICs, and we only see the finals, I don't know anything about these players. And I was talking to the junior champion, Kevin Hahn, before interviewing him, and just sitting there and actually talking to him to just try and get to know him a little bit better. And I was like, oh, do you compete a lot? Have you top cut any other events? And he's like, oh yeah, I won Charlotte last year, and I won Pittsburgh, and I won Fort Wayne, and I won Knoxville. And he's just listing off all these regionals that he's won. And it's like,
wish I knew.
I feel so bad because I feel like I just egoed this kid. Like, you get to play a lot? And yeah, no.
It's like, oh, are you here with your boyfriend? Like, that's what you did to him?
Get his 5 championship medals. Got enough Worlds invites for
this your
the
first
whole family.
Event?
I didn't ask him if it was his first event.
No,
I just asked if he had
but...
top cut other ones. But I felt really bad. I was very transparent with the junior and the senior that I interviewed. I did say, hey, I don't really get a chance to follow. Like, just tell me a bit more about yourself. So I was very straight up with them. But it was really, really cool to like hear from them, which is something I hope that we get to do more. Because obviously once those kids age up, or if we see them at an international championship, which this one kid we're definitely going to see, he's won like 5 regional championship titles in the last year. But then there's a little bit more to go off of. It all goes back to a good broadcast has all this storylining, right? So that'll be good. But that was at like the tough point, because that I think was the hardest stretch. We had to do, realistically, the idea was we have our 2 top 8 matches, right? So we do top 8 1, top 8 2, and then we wanted to get pre-recorded interviews, or live, however the timing stacked up, with the other 2 people who won their top 8 matches to make it in the top cut. At the same time as doing our seniors interview. So it was like getting pulled like 6 different ways at once. And I came off my top 8 interview, and my understanding was the senior interview is going to be taken by somebody else, because you can have a caster fill in for an interview for you if there is too many things to go on at once. So I didn't prep the senior interview because my understanding was I wasn't going to do it. So I was busy prepping all the other interviews. And then I get out and they're like, are you ready to go for that senior interview? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean I got to do the senior interview? I thought this was done. So then all of a sudden I'm like rushing to go talk to this kid, like try and like, and his last name was impossible, and I felt so bad, and I kept like asking him and his dad to try and coach me through this last name, and then they wanted this to be a live segment, so I couldn't even say his last name on broadcast. I just had to call him Connor, because I wasn't, it was like Petrusinki, I don't know, it was impossible. There was no way, but I do think that the roaming cam obviously was fantastic. So I'm excited to see that implemented more in like kind of different ways. It could be implemented too. Because we got to do it for player interviews and like a couple other interviews, but I don't know. I feel like it could be used in really, really cool ways. It's just like the logistics of how to make it work.
Yeah, like it's a freebie. You could steal it, or if any of the other casters are listening. Like I know I'll have to host eventually, right? But for anyone hosting before I get to, like, you ever go to a sporting event and they have hosts on the floor, right, of the basketball arena or the baseball, stadium, where they interview a fan sitting in section 27 or whatever, and they ask them, like, I don't know, like, if you're going to a Maple Leafs game, and trying to make it easy for you to understand, Sierra.
Thank you.
And they ask, like, oh, which Maple Leafs player has the most goals in team history or whatever, and then they win it, and then they get like a Maple Leafs t-shirt or something like that, right? Like, we have those Play Pokemon shirts, so we can do Play Pokemon trivia in with the live crowd, and then they can win a t-shirt or win like a prize wall ticket or something like that.
No, that idea is actually genius. I don't know about the prize wall, but the Play Pokemon shirt. Let me message that to Katie right now.
Can you at least tell her it was my idea, or you just be like,
I'm literally
came up with this.
It's genius Joe Brown idea. Actually, okay. I'm going to start it with rare genius Joe Brown. Just because you told me I had to give you credit, right?
That's fair. I totally, I get that. But as you're typing that out, like, yeah, I just think there is definitely ways that we can, and we don't have to make it gimmicks. Like, we don't have to do t-shirt cannons and, like, having like babies crawling across the floors like NBA events doing stuff. But we can do like some fun, simple things, and that's what helps. I think that would help other players like be invested to continue to come to live events, is like, they know that there's a chance that they could get on stream without going 7-0. Like, just as a Pokemon fan in the crowd, they can get interviewed and asked a question,
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it could work.
Yeah. There's definitely, and I'll talk with you like off podcast about a couple of ideas that I had, because there's definitely a few ideas that I have on how to implement things, and I think a couple of them I'm just stuck on the logistics of, or it kind of needs a couple working pieces, which is fine, because the roaming cam was we have a couple working pieces, so now it's just kind of expanding off of that. I don't feel bad about that, but that's more of a discussion for the broadcast people, and at this point we're just like waffling off on suggestions.
Hey, so from what I heard, Sierra, people like it. People just, I had some people come up to me this week and be like, hey, I stored up like 4 episodes at once for my drive here to Charlotte, and you guys, it's like you were in the car with me the whole time, so like sometimes they like to hear our random conversations like this.
That's true.
They feel a part of the discussion.
Well, if you want to get involved in discussion, if you have any suggestions for stream stuff, always ears open, because like it is something too that like in the Discord, yeah. Because it is something too, I don't think people realize. I know there is a disconnect sometimes between the casters and the community, just because we're the ones behind the scenes in the stream and whatnot. But I don't think people realize sometimes like how much we do keep an eye out and kind of listen to feedback. And there isn't always stuff that things can, like, we can't move the wheel, can't move the needle or whatever it is on everything. But like having the discussions on like what matches get picked for stream, etc., is stuff that we actually talk about a lot. So it's not stuff that's going to be instant. It's also a very opinionated subject, because what one person wants to see, maybe the other person doesn't. But the stuff about like how segments can be filled, trying to make downtime a little bit more enjoyable, like we are actively working towards that. So if anyone's ever sitting there like, oh, I got a banger for y'all, like,
I mean, for sure, like, well, San Antonio was the first time we got to play Pokemon Stadium, right? Like, that was like that. I was the first host in San Diego last year. Like, that was the thing I suggested in San Diego 2023, and it finally came to fruition. Shout outs to Gabby for actually pulling the trigger and actually getting the equipment and making it a feasible project to do to kill downtime. And like, so these things, like, we're having conversations in the background just because we don't know, just because you don't see it on Twitter or anything. Like, we are actively trying to make every broadcast better, a better and better experience for the viewers.
Yeah, which the Pokemon Stadium thing is so fun, but I definitely need better controllers for that one.
Bro,
because I got the bug controller.
Rest in peace, Aaron.
Cool. Well, Aaron had a good controller. It was me who got sabotaged. So then I had to ruin his run because of it.
That's how it works. I gotta bring you down with me.
Yeah. So the normal computer won. Normal difficulty computer. Fantastic. You
Dude,
know?
That's so funny that it went from me and Len in San Antonio being like as hardcore as possible, like years and years and years of Pokemon Stadium minigame experience, and I'll give him the edge. I think he probably won like 60-40 for 60% of the minigames we played, but like we were sweating it out. And then it goes to like, oh, normal computer wins.
My control. I'm so sweaty at Pokemon Stadium, but both Rose and Aaron had wired controllers. I had Joy-Cons.
Yep.
And I was also the farthest from the Switch. And boy, those babies weren't taken. They were not taken.
I had bad controls during the Don fan races. My Joy-Cons just literally could not do anything. They were not moving at all. I was hitting every wall. But like people don't believe me. They're like, oh, you're just making it up. I'm like, I'm spamming left. I'm spamming change direction right now.
Like I tried to
Don
show
fans
them.
not listening.
Like the one Pikachu charge game where it's like the A or B. I was pressing the right button every time, and my Pikachu's just sitting there like not doing anything. And I've played this game enough growing up. I know I'm not bad at it. Same with the Sandshrew one. I don't think I've ever lost that Sandshrew left right game a day in my life. I don't think I've ever lost. The Rattata one, I've never lost. Like this is also, and you can see it too. Like I'm mashing A, and my Rattata's going so fast, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just stops. My thumb didn't just stop. Like you can see that I was mashing it the whole time, so you can see it was a controller diff there. So yeah, they sabotaged me. That sounds about right. But
Aaron seemed the most emotional from losing to a computer. Like at least you never like fell out of your chair. Like all I saw was the Twitter photo. Was like somebody posted it on Twitter, and Aaron just looked completely distraught and was like, "Oh God, what just happened on the stream?"
The one reason that I will not fall out of my chair or anything else is majority of these events I wear a skirt or a dress, which unfortunately gives me a little bit of ranged movements in that sort of way. So we got to leave all the reacting to Aaron. Plus, at this point, I think it's just a funny meme that 2 segments of mine, back to back, because both times that I've worked with Aaron, I've been hosting a segment, because even when I casted with him, I hosted a segment in the lounge because it was my idea, the Pokemon Colors. Yeah. And I made him rage quit both. So I have a good track record going on. I'll have to go 3 for 3.
Next time I see Aaron, because I only saw him for like a couple minutes in Charlotte, and we were just talking about like K-pop and stuff. Next event that I see him, I gotta go up to him and be like, hey, what color is Chimecho? he might just duck me. He just be like, no, I refuse. I refuse to engage with these color descriptions.
That was a very good.
It was so good.
That was a good segment. I cook sometimes, but hey, we should talk about the next regional coming up. One where they're definitely cooking, specifically with like their set designs, because we got to talk about the EU broadcast, because Liverpool. By the time this is going live, I will be on my stupidly long train to Toronto. But yeah, Liverpool is coming up this weekend.
That's really exciting. I mean, you're our live correspondents. Make sure you take some photos, take some videos. We can post on the socials.
Yep, I have a great track record with remembering to do all that. So I will, I will. Yep. Definitely.
Dude, we gotta get Juancho in the call one of these days. One of our good TCG commentary friends, because was it Saturday night, Sunday night? We were just hanging out at the hotel, and we had a passionate conversation back and forth. Me and Sierra just giving our whole voices on every opinion we've ever had in our life. And then we turned to Juancho, who was sitting with us. We're like, all right, we're split 50-50. Juancho, what do you think? He's like, yeah, I can see what you're both saying. And I'm like,
you
bro,
gotta
watch it.
give
Why are
the
you being a
context
mom
too.
right now? Like, you're just trying to diffuse the situation. Like, pick a side, bro.
You got to give the context that it was all the stuff about the podcast as well. So it
Yeah.
was like everything about like social posts, like the clips get posted, like etc. And we're just like we talked
We
about
were
this.
turning to him for advice, and he's just like,
Yeah,
yeah, I can see what you're saying. I'm just like, bro. It was
yeah,
so funny.
yeah. Poor Honcho on that one, but
Like, he's an American citizen now, but he was more like Switzerland in that conversation, you know? Just
I don't
neutral.
blame him. I don't blame. It was funny, especially too because like our content's like ideas and stuff. I don't think either's wrong. It's just a difference in opinion, a difference
Yeah.
in like because you have been working as an editor for a long time and you've gotten to edit on quite a big programs under quite a few big names. So that is very valuable experience I don't have. I've worked as like a self-made content creator. Like I went from no viewers to actually having a like getting Twitch partner, and then from there getting picked up by Pokemon because they saw enough of my branding and my personality to pick me up, and that was all like self-made for myself. So it was like very different views on content. And yeah, Juancho didn't give us an answer, so we're still figuring that one out.
Really flatlined that conversation.
Yeah. No. So good times, but hey, I'll try and take a couple pictures. Like realistically, the amount of content I post is going to be very equivalent to how many rounds I'm winning. I'm not gonna lie.
That's fair.
Like if I make it to day 2, y'all are getting like the let's go like pop off at the event after at my like 7-2 record or whatnot. But
The Liverpool karaoke.
yeah, Liverpool karaoke be sick. I already talked about this mini golf place that looks really, really sick with some people, so we'll have to.
What's the
We'll have
weather
to see.
outside? Are you going to be able to mini golf? Or you're going to be freezing.
Inside mini golf.
Okay. See, where I come from, mini golf takes place outdoors.
Oh, it can be inside too. But this is what we're supposed to be talking about with Liverpool. This is going to be the first European Reg F regional, and obviously coming off of Charlotte. I am so intrigued with what's going to happen for Liverpool because in the past, NA and EU have had different like kind of meta takes and a couple of weird points. So when Shinijo was really big, it was only really big in EU. There's also more Among Us and more Among Us respect in EU than there is in NA. NA kind of goes up and down with how respectful they want to be of it. So I don't know then when we're looking at this Reg F meta where it very much so 180'd with some of these picks, if that's then going to be built upon in Reg F, if they're going to be like behind the curve, if it's going to be just kind of exactly the same or what it's going to be.
I think we are, especially because I don't even know why I'm saying anything since I was so dead wrong at what I expected to see in Charlotte. I'm kind of cursing Liverpool with whatever I say. If I say, oh, we're going to see an uptick in, Ogerpon Hearthflame after Wolf's win, and then like, just because I said it, Hearthflame is going to be like a 4% usage mon. But I do think that this should probably open people's eyes to a lot. Like Portland, a lot of people can just like say, "Oh, it's a crapshoot," and it was the first event, and people just went with like reliable strategies, but then added Raging Bolt, and in Portland, and obviously you can't take all those results that well. But now Charlotte, we've had time, we've had prior results, we've had massive online tournaments that like affect real life results as well, right? Like there was a big online tournament that had a bunch of those. Was it 4 size spam teams in top 8? There's another online tournament that had 3 Blood Moon Ursalunas, and the player that won the event was Blood Moon as well. And as we saw, Blood Moon had a huge tick up this weekend in Charlotte compared to Portland. So, like, I guess there's like 2 ways we can ask this question, Sierra. Do you think the way that the top 12 graphic plays out and adapts the meta will affect Europe, or is it more the individual like teams up top? Like if we look, there's 3 Ursaluna in top 8. I don't know how many. It looks like it's 4 in total in top 16, right? I'm counting like 9 Ogerpon Wellspring, which is effectively half of the top 16. Like, do you think the Europeans are looking at the top 12 graphic, or are they looking at Gouging Fire got 3rd, or 3 Blood Moons, or there was an Iron Crown in top 8? Like, what do you think their preference is to look at for team building?
I know as much as we look at the top 12, I think what's going to be the most important is like the team archetypes that are kind of making it, and to be looking at those instead, because ultimately you can say that Amoonguss is on whatever, etc., 30% of teams. That doesn't actually do you any good. Okay, how would Amoonguss answer? But what team do you have to have an Amoonguss answer into? Because maybe you actually didn't need an answer because you're so strong into everything else, etc. So I think that's kind of going to be the thing that if they're prepping for Liverpool, that will be what they're looking for into. I'm also intrigued going into this event how much of a Wolf Glick effect is going to be happening, specifically with not just with Wolf's win. He actually posted his team on Patreon,
Right.
including like the matchups and like how to play the team and stuff, which also kudos for him doing that right after an event. I think that's really cool of him. Obviously, people look for that sort of team, and sometimes people are really like close guarded with their teams. Obviously, if he's not planning on picking it back up, why not share it? Super, super cool. But I'm curious with how many people are then going to see that team and try and take it. But then also, that is a team that's built for him.
For
so
Wolf
I don't
Glick,
know.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. That's the caveat. Is like you could post all the EV spreads you want on Patreon, but like me as the novice that went 2-5, like I'm not gonna pilot this Farigarath Firewater Grass Hearthflame team as well as he did.
I mean, that's kind of the thing is, nah, you can't pilot as well as he did, but I don't think everybody recognizes that, because the thing is going into an event, there is going to be a percentage of the field and stuff that is going to be other people picking up the teams that other people created, etc. So I think with that this could also be a case where we're going to see an uptick in these types of teams, not even because we should see the uptick in the teams, but more so because people will pick up his team regardless of whether it's going to be good for them or not.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his team right now, and it's very well rounded. Like the one I want to call it weird, but let's say like off decision thing is the Calm Mind on Fluttermane. But I'd heard that like it obviously changes the dynamic of matches because it's booster energy. So, but if you boost up your special attack to make it higher than your speed, then you can become like if a sun gets set or something like that, you can then become a special attack booster instead of your natural speed booster. So like it's just making his Fluttermane even more dynamic, which I think is an area that not as many people would do. Like people would probably just put Dazzling Gleam or Icy Wind in that fourth slot instead of Calm Mind. But like besides that, it's a lot of understandable things like safety goggles, Incineroar, Scarf for Shifu. Like the Ogerpon and Rillaboom have really nice synergy. By having Swords Dance and Grassy Glide, I think that's one of the best answers for, because a lot of the set up Ogerpons, their issue is like they set up and then still like they still get one hit or something. So having Grassy Glide with Rillaboom there is really nice. But to me, the star Farigarath that we all love. Farigarath has now won 2 regional championships with both Giovanni Costa and Wolf Glick, and Geo's was Life Orb, and Farigarath is Throat Spray. Yet, I'm sure if you look at Picolytics or if you ask the general population, they much prefer Rocky Helmet or Citrus Berry or Leftovers or a mental herb or whatever. Like, so it's interesting that the 2 times Farigarath has been deemed like the best team by the best player, it's been an offensive held item.
I definitely think that's good, though, because I feel like the issue with Farigarath, that was something that's been discussed before, even here, and I'm assuming amongst players, is it kind of just feels weak and underwhelming at some points. It's just kind of, you go there, you have your Armor Tail, you can maybe get a Trick Room if you need a Trick Room, but beyond that, it kind of just perishes, and it doesn't really just offer any offensive pressure. So actually building a set that has to be respected, all of a sudden, you're not stuck in that, oh, well, I have the Trick Room sort of way. All of a sudden, you can go for just that sheer damage and catch somebody off guard. Like, I think that's a really good way in building it that, I don't know, obviously it worked because that Farigarath could do damage.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what Geo's set was with the life life orb. I can't remember if it was also psychic hyper voice or if it was like psychic noise dazzling gleam or something like that. But like, you know, regardless, like the intention was for Farigiraf to have a little bit more of a kick behind its power there. And I think this is like kind of a really fundamental VGC strategy. I think someone even made a joke like in they like posted Wolf's Players Cup winning team and then posted his his Charlotte winning team, and it had Rillaboom, Incineroar, Urshifu, and then like the Colossal was in the Hearth Flame slot, and like as a fire type, and then like it was like, oh yeah, like you can definitely develop tendencies, and the formats may change and the Pokemon that are available and the mechanics and gimmicks may change, but Wolf fundamentally still understands like, I have a strong fake outer, I have 2 fake outs, I have 2 U-turns, I have a setup Pokemon, I have anti-priority, I have anti-trick room. Like he still builds his team the same way, whether no matter what his options are, it's just the Pokemon change that are available to him, if that makes sense.
Which is going to be the better way in team building as well, because realistically having those options, that the fundamentals of a good team doesn't change throughout the regulations, right? So I feel like someone who is seasoned at the game is going to recognize that well and team build around that well, which is also why you could see a lot of like these old head VGC players all like very consistently still be very good at the game, because that sort of thing of team building doesn't go away, and then coupled up with like the skill that they've built up over time is going to be giving them an inherent advantage. If the game was so fundamentally changed that having these fundamentals, having these abilities to kind of have the same things you're looking for in a team, I think you'd see a lot more new people be winning out than we have been. Last season was really, really cool, but this season's been all about the old heads and who's been around, and we're seeing the consistency popping up from people who've been playing this game for 5, 7, 10 years.
Yeah, I think even as last year as an outlier where, Justin and Abdullah won their first events they attended, even when you look at their teams, like Justin's like kind of, I don't know, in my head, like the king of balance teams, right? Tinglu balance, Falafin balance, like Gyarados balance, like all these different things that he runs. He builds very, very well-rounded teams, I should say, right? So it's not like he went out there with 6 hyper-offensive Pokemon that have no defensive synergy whatsoever, and he's just clicking buttons and happen to win. And Abdullah with the Sun Sleep Powder team, like that's an offensive archetype that we have seen before. So even if he was a newer player to the game, he was using a consistent strategy that we have seen throughout the history of VGC. So like obviously Wolf is able to adapt his teams over event and event, and I can't wait for whenever his YouTube video gets released for Charlotte, like that's going to be if the Worlds video was 2 hours long, and this is the biggest event ever, I can't wait to watch however long that episode is going to be, because those videos are so good, man.
They are, but did you watch the Worlds one? Because wasn't half the video like talking about each event leading up to Worlds?
Yeah,
I don't think you can really do that I don't think you can do that for a regional video.
But he's got 15 rounds to cover. He can find some way. He could talk about Bojangles, in the venue. Like he can make some ways to pad the runtime.
I want the video contents of what like on his break, like a little short video of every brunch that he had, the books he was reading.
Exactly.
TV show that he was binging,
Get that runtime up.
Yeah, all that relaxation before coming out and winning this event. So, yeah. We were talking about Liverpool. How did we start talking about Wolf Glick again? I
don't know. I was looking at his team. I was because we were talking about how it's going to affect the game, the meta, and then you were like, you asked, is it a Wolf Glick effect? Like, are people just going to run what he is running? That's how we got back onto Wolf and back onto Charlotte. So, if we'd like to go back to Liverpool, what are your thoughts on just seeing there's 3 Ursaluna Blood Moon in top 8? Do you think Liverpool is going to have we're not going to do a full-on predictions for this one, but like, do you think Ursaluna, like three right now, is it going to be 1? Is it going to be 2? Is it going to be 4 in top cut in Liverpool? Like, what are you thinking?
I don't think it'd be one. I think that it is a pretty strong Pokemon right now, and I do think that maybe there is going to be iterations on the meta, but I think it has been proven that just Blood Moon Ursaluna is a good Pokemon. And that we're still going to be seeing that power level going on here, because I don't know if it's something that necessarily people can solve before Liverpool happens. So I'd be willing to bet more crazily with Knoxville, that things might change as people get the opportunity coming off of Charlotte to try and kind of counter and build upon. But the back-to-back events, sure, may not be the same players, but if they were prepping something that, because I do know people that have been working on a team for ever since Reg F came out, and that team does not hold up well against the Charlotte meta, So
Yeah, guilty. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm one of those people.
yeah. So it'll be one of those things there where I think because of that, anyone who is able to adopt one of these new 6 will be able to go far with it, just because there is going to be people that are still running their same comfortable teams that aren't going to switch, and that might unfortunately be taking a hard loss to a couple of teams.
Yeah, I think and like we've seen that conversation on Twitter too, right? Like especially people talking about online tournaments that are affecting the meta, and if that's a pro or con. Like it's not that it's a pro or con if it's affecting the meta. It's the amount of time we have to adjust compared to how much it does affect the meta, if that makes sense. Like, yes, it's good that the meta is evolving and more strategies are becoming viable and more trainers becoming, like better with their team archetypes. However, when that shift happens a day and a half before the largest regional of all time, and you've been building up to Charlotte for the last 2 months playing this format on online, getting ready for this moment, then it's like for all your practice to be gone at the drop of a hat, like that. I can understand a player's frustration.
Yeah, it's I can understand the frustration, but I also think in the game that having all this tournaments and all this stuff is ultimately good. I could understand someone being frustrated that their team got maybe blown up and then out counter or something, but at the same time, I think it's part of the game. I think having the ability to have more tournaments online, be playing this game, is only beneficial for the growth of the game. And maybe somebody's having that super secret spice kind of blown up, and maybe that's unfortunate. But I do feel that majority of the skills should be coming from the outplaying at the event itself, not if you just have a team that nobody knew about that they can't do anything about. I think that is part of going into an event, but realistically, anyone who's taking up one of those teams that they tried to be spicy with, they should still be able to win off of that skill, right?
For sure. I mean, yeah, to a degree, because obviously, like, you can look at Wolf's team and see that, like, Ogerpon Hearthflame was drastically on the downfall the last couple events, and Rillaboom straight up fell off the top 12 graphic on day 2, I believe. Like, so you can I don't want to say hide information. Like you're saying, you have friends that like maybe they went to Charlotte and they ran one team, but they knew in Liverpool they'd be running the real tech or whatever. But like sometimes it is possible. Like I do imagine Ogerpon Hearthflame probably caught a lot of people off guard this weekend with Swords Dance Grassy Glide, because half the field is Wellspring anyway, so you're not even expecting to see the Hearthflame, and then most of Regulation E, we didn't have Grassy Glide, right? Because you were running Riley's Ogerpon strategy with Follow Me in that last slot instead of Swords Dance Grassy Glide. So, like, there is value in, I don't want to say hiding because it sounds so nefarious, but, like, withholding your best strategy for the right moment.
Yeah, it's just all of a sudden, like, because I think it is one of those things too that looking at it, it's either we have the tournaments or we don't have the tournaments. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I could understand that, but ultimately, I think the benefit from having these tournaments is overall better, to where it's just as simple as that, right? So it's like I can understand any unhappiness about it, I can understand any grief about it, but ultimately, I just do think that the online tournaments, people getting proper reputable practice against things, being able to build up more upon this meta, I think is just more of a better thing that I'd be willing to just forego everything else. So
I think we've had a pretty good discussion here for post Charlotte. So maybe
yeah,
let's get you time. You got to pack. You got to get ready. You're going to another country
competing
tomorrow. So let's start wrapping up here.
Yeah. We can rant all day, but going into our question of the week. This one's a little bit of a bigger question. Kind of covers a little bit of topics here. I have to open up Discord because I just written down the shorthand of the question, as opposed to getting the longhand. This one's coming out from Code Beast. Refacing with, hey guys, going to my first regional tournament in Knoxville. Let's go. Always love to see people coming out to their first event. I was wanting to know what I should have prepared in my bag for the day. What should I avoid? And what should I do between rounds if there's free time? And also asking, when is it appropriate to come up and speak to commentators, like not wanting to be rude? And for the question, we'll also apply that to like big content creators, big players type thing. So first part, what to have in bag on the day. Are you an overpacker type of person here, or are you one of those people that shows up with the bare minimum that everyone else has kind of account for?
I mean, when I'm traveling, I overpack and I hate myself because every time I'm like, bro, I'm gone for 3.5 days. Clearly, I need 5.5 outfits for this, plus my 2 suits, So I get like nervous overpacking there. But as a player, for example, this weekend, all I had in my backpack was my charger, right? My phone charger, my Switch charger, same USB-C, my Nintendo Switch, and I think I had like not like this type of like not like a Pro controller, but like just like the Joy-Con holder. You know what I mean? Like just in case I needed to detach my Joy-Cons for something, because like I had played in the regional, so I didn't know. I was like, oh, do I have to take the Joy-Cons off? I know some people play with GameCube controllers, like, but it turns out you can just play with it on, so you don't even need that. So my bag was actually pretty empty. And I like that because I kept putting my team sheet in my bag every round, where you see other people put it in there so much in their bag and it just gets crumpled and stuff. And my team sheet was relatively, stable and flat for the entirety of the day. So at a bare minimum, I would say a charger, your Nintendo Switch, and then like, I guess like a water or something like that from your from the venue. But like you don't need too much on you during the day, because it really does weigh you down when you're walking around for 8 hours, and sometimes you're going to be standing and holding your backpack, and if you have a whole bunch of stuff in there and extra shirts and extra sweaters and whatever, it's just like it will start the mental drain will start physically draining you by the end of the day when you have so much stuff that you're carrying with you.
Okay, you don't need extra shirts or extra sweaters. I will say that. I definitely have a little bit more on me. So the way I like to look at having in my bag when I compete is, for any pretty minor inconvenience, I want to make sure that I'm covered, as well as I have my friends covered. So I have individual small pill bottles, one for Advil, one for Tylenol, and one for Tums. They all fit they're all super small.
That's a good
in the
call.
front pocket of my thing. The amount of times, I'm even like popping Advils between rounds because I have a headache. Just like looking down, I start to get migraines, and I'll just be like, anyone need an Advil? Like around me, the amount of times people have taken me up on that because they have not brought Advil and they kind of do need one at that time, I think is hilarious. So I always have those 3 on me. You obviously don't need both. Ugarte is allergic to Advil, but I prefer Advil, so I always have both. Have a pair of headphones, even just small wired ones.
Oh yeah, I did have that too.
Being able to listen to your own music between rounds is super, super nice. Or like, I find it easier to focus listening to the music when I play, which is fantastic. You don't really need too much otherwise on you. You need your Switch, of course. I'd bring a bottle of water. Sometimes the lines are really long. The last thing you want to do is like be parched waiting for it. And if you're a caffeine girly, make sure you have some caffeine. I always drink an energy drink before I leave my hotel room, or like take it on like to go to have like by me for my first round. Then I always have one in my bag just in case. I don't normally crack into it, but I do always have it on me. And if you're one of those people that does just love having a big backpack or prepared for any situation, I just remember San Diego last year, desperate need of caffeine. And Peggy's like, I got you. Opens up his bag, and there's just like 6 energy drinks just floating there of a bunch of different flavors. It's like, you are my favorite person right now. Oh my God. It's just like, here we go. I think next day I was like, Peggy, do you have any more energy drinks? I'm in desperate need. It was like the best person during that weekend, right? But being able to at least have yourself covered if you need some caffeine is definitely super good. If you're not a caffeine person, you don't have to worry about that one. But that's all you need the day of the event. Like, and half of those are optional. I just think it does make your experience a little bit better. If you're eating concession stand hot dog and it kind of upsets your tummy, you want to have a Tums on you. Like, if you're getting a headache.
Another one I thought of, like,
oh yeah,
like people, we've had a conversation on you don't need to write notes, and if you want to write notes, whatever, like, don't be the guy that brings like the school book notebook as big as hell and like you open it like and flip through 15 pages to get to you're wasting so much space because you have in the rules you have to start on a fresh sheet of paper every round. So if you have like those small ones, like I'm using my phone, like where you like you kind of flip it. Sometimes you even get that at events, like as a part of the swag bags. I've gotten at Pokemon regionals before, like those small ones that come with a little pen or attached to it. Like if you are going to take notes, like if you want to bring a notebook to take notes, I would definitely bring a miniature notebook. I would not be the guy out there with like the black and white, middle school notebook, because it's just not, it's taking up too much space and it's also just not worth it, and it's a hassle in your bag.
That being said, regardless if you do notes or not, you don't need to have a pen on you, but because they do have like pens kind of skewed about the table, but having a pen in your bag is just super, super helpful, because sometimes if you 2-0 your opponent too quickly, sometimes the pens are just kind of out of reach. You don't want to disturb other people's games. Just good to have a pen kind of with you. It just makes it easier. There was one more I just thought of that was like you don't need it, but it kind of nice. A snack, just a protein bar, something.
For sure, you'll get hungry.
Good.
Also, if you want to talk about like things to do between rounds and stuff, like I don't know how you are, Sierra, but like I try to go to the vendors and the like concessions, food and stuff in like off-peak rounds. You know what I mean? Like if there's a lunch is after round 3, like you might as well just know that round 3 you're not getting food because there's so many people. Like, so I would go to the concession stand after my round 1 match and buy a snack, or just buy a Gatorade, or just buy a cookie or a candy bar or whatever, and then I'd go back at round 6 when nobody else is there too, like just so you don't waste so much of your precious time of an event. Like you could be talking to friends and all these other things, or watching other matches, watching a stream, but no, you're just like standing in line waiting for the cheeseburger because you're going the exact time everybody else is waiting. So unless you're starving, I get it when you go with round 3 when everyone else has the lunch break. But like I would try to go during off-peak air times to go to some of those things.
Yeah, that's definitely a good call. And for people that have more friends in the community that do attend events, normally in between rounds, there's a lot of people just kind of meeting up. As much as like I want to say, don't be that person who's like, oh, you can't believe how I just lost that last round. I'm not gonna lie. That is literally all the groups do anyways. Everyone will complain that they hate it when people do that. And every single time, everyone like clockwork does the exact same thing after their match, which is the funniest thing. But regardless, as well, listening to music to kind of de-stress, if that's kind of your thing. If you're going to an event and you don't really have anyone to talk to, you can always hang around the stream area to watch it if you feel awkward about standing there. I do think that if you haven't quite made those friends yet, and if you're wanting to, you got to start trying to kind of put yourself out there as well as you can in a little bit more of a productive way. So opponents that you're playing, not everyone's a talker, especially not during the games. I wouldn't really try and hit someone up during the games, but if you're having a good conversation with someone before the game, there's a lot of people that are really friendly. Like, talk to them before the game and after the game as well. If they seem like they're cool and willing to chat, you can even ask, hey, I don't really have anyone here with me. Can I stay around you and like chat and like beat people or something? Like, worst you're gonna do is say no, right? If you've already been talking to them, they seem chill, like worst they're gonna say is no, you know? And there's even people in the stream area, the amount of times that people have kind of just like half joined in someone else's conversation, I've seen people become friends is pretty high. So I think what's most important in the situations is having enough social awareness to realize that someone's not vibing with you and don't try and impose further. But just being like straight up honest about the situation, I don't think like some people won't mind. And if someone does, then you just leave them, right?
Social awareness in this economy, I'm not sure if
Damn.
not sure if everybody has picked up on that memo, but I think you can have a tactical approach to this for anybody who's it's your first event. You're going to Knoxville, right? Let's say round one, you're at table 200. So you talk to your opponent of me and Sierra were opponents at table 200. I just meet her. Oh, how long you been playing? Yada yada yada. And then like you can talk to the people at table 201 and table 199 also. Like naturally conversations do happen in groups like that, especially when we all were sitting there waiting forever during round one in Charlotte. Just all naturally the people in our area were all talking to each other. And then like, you know, follow up with those same people throughout the day. So like, let's say you're the guy that was at table 199, you had a good conversation with him, and now it's round 3, and you know, you both finished your matches early. Like, hit that guy up, say, oh, hey, how's your day going so far? How, you know, oh, I just faced this really weird Pokemon, blah, blah. And then, like, the more you build that camaraderie up with him, and then he has his friend that he saw earlier in the day, like, you can start to build a little bit of a group. And it's also just good because, you know, it keeps you busy in the middle of rounds, like, because you're just asking other people how they're doing and how their day is going. But like that way you're tactically meeting new people every single round. Like if you talk to the immediate 5 people around you, right, you and then your opponent and then the 2 opponents next to you, like every round, if you talk to all 5 of them, that's 5, that's 10, that's 15 people you introduce yourself to, 20, 25 throughout the entire day. Like that you might not become best friends with, but if you see them at the, I don't know, the TCG vendor or buying a plushie or something, like you can then know, oh, I can bring up a conversation to them and try to make friendships that way. So that would be my recommendation. Just be tactical about it.
Looping back with people that you've played against like is actually so underrated. So back when I was competing in TCG at Vancouver Regionals, I think 2017, I could be wrong on the year. It was when Gardevoir GX was a thing. And I played against somebody and we were running Mirror Gardevoir GX Sylveon decks. And Mirror is god awful, let me tell you. And in a 50-minute round timer, we didn't even finish our first game.
Oh, wow.
And it got to the point, because in TCG, if you don't finish a game, like if I win one, my opponent wins one, and we don't finish game 3, it's a tie. We kind of realized at some point that whoever won game 1 was going to win the set, right? So it kind of just became funny. We still played. I ended up losing, but it was such a funny moment that like for the rest of the event we kind of like kept touch. But like the next time I saw him, like I saw him at every single event after. And like still to this day I'll see him at events. And it's still like a, oh hey, how are you doing, bud? Like, I'm doing good. How about you? Like it was a situation that happened like 7 years ago. But it still was like this funny moment that like we both still knew. And even for just like a recent example at Portland, I ended up playing the PC on Friday, and I don't think this person ended up knowing that I was a Pokemon caster, but she was talking to me a little bit, and she kept tabs, and, like, if she saw me during the Saturday, "Oh, how are you doing today?" And then, like, "Are you doing better?" Like, and then Friday, she was also playing the MSS, and then she's like, we both won our first round. She's like, "Let's just both keep winning out," right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe not everyone is friendly. Maybe not everyone wants to chat, but there definitely is going to be really good people in the community. And there is going to be people that might be in the similar boat as you or might be looking for friends. So it's like kind of keeping yourself open to that possibility is, I think, humongous.
Yeah, for sure. I also think, yeah, like that's really nice too. You have a friend from so long time ago where you just keep up between rounds. And like, to be honest, that's kind of how Joe Garte and I became friends back in the day.
Really?
Is like, we would be, I always joke like, 2017, like, we were both chilling at the low tables, just having conversations, and like, oh, how'd your round go? It's like, oh, I played this really off meta thing, blah blah blah. And like, over time we'd see each other at events and regionals, and then obviously through online and COVID and getting on stream and everything like that. Like, our friendship like that naturally grew over time. Of, I don't even know if I ever faced Joe at an event, but like, just talking in between rounds, like, how's your day going? Oh, you're 3-0, keep it up. Or, oh, you're 1-2, all right, you can bring it back. I can, I have confidence. Like, and it's just so, and look, we're best buds now, so
There you go. I think that segues well. Wow, I cannot talk. Into the last part, when was a good time to approach casters, which will also include creators and top players for
the bathroom,
that one, I have heard horror stories of that one. So yeah, but I think this one's a little bit trickier. Obviously, because nobody wants to seem unapproachable at events or seem like just like a rude person or like a dick. But obviously, there are certain people that will just kind of get mobbed throughout the day, and people don't understand. Not everyone, but like, some people don't understand that the creators that are there to play and make content. The top players are there to play. Casters, they're there to do their job, and there might be limited time to be hanging out with friends. And ultimately, that same experience that somebody wants to be hanging out at an event with their friends, these people want as well, right? And it can get really difficult sometimes if somebody is just getting mobbed and people don't necessarily understand boundaries. So I would say, for when is a good time to talk to them, is almost like, in my opinion, almost any time, not the bathroom, if it's a quick, brief meeting. I think that everybody of a creator, caster, top player is used to it. So if you're quickly, hi, I'm a really big fan, or I really like your casting, or you're my favorite player, can you sign this, or can you take a picture with me, or I just wanted to say hi. Any one of those quickly, I think, is more than fine at any point in the day, because these people are pretty used to it. If you've literally just kicked their butt at a game, maybe not quite then. I'd maybe, wait another round. But like, any other time, I think it's fine. I think the only issue is the overstaying, because I've definitely had people that, while I've been trying to hang out at an event, they're like, you're my new best friend now, and I'm not going to let you go, which that's
you are
a little
not
tough.
wrong.
That's a little tough sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part, and that's why I joked on your social awareness, point earlier. Like, so so my answer for this section is, what are you trying to accomplish? If you want a photo, or you want them to sign your Switch or a TCG card or something like that, then it's all just being it's just being courteous. Like, if let's say me, Sierra, and I don't know, Jody are in a circle talking out in the floor. Like, you can say, oh, excuse me, hey, just wanted to say I love the podcast, so can I take a photo with you? Like, I think someone would have to be like heartless to be in that moment to say like, no, scratch off or whatever. Like, usually, yeah, sure, let's take a photo, and what's your name, blah blah blah. But like, so like, if you approach a creator or a caster like with the intention to have a 10-minute conversation with them about how much you got hacked by like Torkoal Fissure and stuff, like, the caster might not be as interested, especially if they don't know you for beforehand. So I think one of the things Sierra mentioned before, like, when you hang out by the stream, that's where a lot of players are, and you can kind of just naturally engross yourself into a conversation. I used to try to do that back in the day all the time with the Liberty Garden events when I was a nobody, and like, at the low tables, and back then, like, you couldn't even speak. You had to state your record before you could voice your opinion back then. So I'd have a lot of tough times just even trying to start conversations. But if you're talking to really nice people, like I would talk to, like, Justin Karras and Tommy Cooling and James Beck and like other nice top players. Like, if they're talking about a specific matchup, and like, oh yeah, the Landers is blah blah blah, and then like you could just naturally join in, but like, oh yeah, I've been running Assault Vest Landers just for that exact situation, and then like you found a common ground to. You don't want to just kick the door into their conversation, and now I'm a part of this circle. Like you want to find common ground with them, and if you want to have a conversation,
And again, still, even with that situation, just kind of the social awareness of it, because there is like, I think realistically that like a top player at an event, if they're wanting to sit there in their small little circle and talk to their friends and not have a 10-minute conversation with someone they don't know. Because you said like, oh, like maybe they're not interested. It's not even like a not being interested thing. It's understanding everyone has different levels of socialness. So I know, despite the fact, like for myself, that I am an on-air talent, content creator, do the podcasts and stuff, and decently outgoing for those situations. Situations where I don't know people well, I'm pretty introverted. I'm pretty quiet. Like I don't do well in social situations. It's pretty awkward, and it's like putting on a mask, and it's a really difficult situation to overcome. So if people keep coming up to me and like, I want to be your new best friend and we're going to spend the next while talking, it quickly becomes a really big source of anxiety, especially to being a figure for Pokemon. I cannot be like, hey, can you just leave me alone? Even if I'm like inside, like I am not like, I cannot do this. I cannot sit here and talk to somebody to then be approached by somebody else. Like there's been times where I have like 4 people who don't know each other whatsoever, all coming up to me, all wanting something from me. And it's like, I can't do this, right? So I think like there is just going to be a degree of social awareness, like especially too if you're somebody trying to have a conversation, to recognize that these people are just trying to enjoy their event as well, and some people aren't quite as talkative, and to kind of respect people's space if they're maybe not in a talkative mood. Like there has been people who have shamed top players or creators like for not wanting to talk to them before, or like, oh well, this person like ran off pretty quickly because they might be tired, even at Charlotte, after the event was done, I put my jacket on and put my hood up, and I was like, I don't want to talk to anyone, and nobody could recognize me, so nobody did talk to me. But it's like one of those situations, like that's kind of the measure you have to do, because some people just don't quite understand. And it's like such a privileged thing to say too, because some people are like, well, you should be able to talk to people, but it's not always like that, right? It's like,
I like that you just like you put your jacket on, then they can't see the 2-toned hair anymore, and it's just like, oh, it's just this person.
No, it was do you know that, like, I will not name names. Do you know the amount of people who egoed me, not realizing it was me, just thinking I was some like random person?
No.
I definitely like eyebrow raise a little bit after that one, but like I'd be like trying to like say something to someone and they like instantly dismissed me, and it was so like funny. And I'd take the photo off and they're like,
oh hey, oh my god.
Yeah. They just thought
Big
I was
fan.
they just thought like I was a random person, like just joining in the conversation and walking in, which I thought was really funny. But.
Well, I don't want to scare our listener, with the being worried about talking to casters, top players. So the number one thing is to be courteous, be respectful, and being polite. Saying excuse me or hi, I'm a fan. I'm blah blah blah. I love your YouTube, content or something like that. Like that way, like you're being respectful. If they're with a group of people, if there's already like 7 or 8 people there, it's like kind of tough for you to put yourself in there. But if they're just talking to one friend and you say, excuse me, hi, I think most people would reciprocate back,
I will say, like, the one caveat too for when to not approach somebody is if they're very clearly on their way to go do something.
If someone's walking somewhere, don't ask someone to stop to talk to you.
Especially too, like there has been times where I'm on my way for an interview. NAIC was actually really difficult for this, in the fact that the stage that I had to host at was out on the floor. So every time I would go out to that stage, sometimes with camera crew, sometimes with staff, sometimes with the other casters, there was quite a few times where somebody would get stopped, which I definitely understand we'll stop them while we can. But every time we had staff with us and we're on our way to do the thing. And like there is one situation, I felt so bad. Because you realize, too, like, that puts us kind of in an awkward situation. There was this one dad there with his really young daughter. Like, she really looks up to you. Can we get a photo? And, like, I'm like, I can, but I really have to go after because, like, they're, like, calling, like, we need you out here now. So it isn't even like a I don't want to stop and talk sort of thing because it was a really sweet situation, but it was like a ultimately was there to do a job and they're like, Sierra, we need you on air. We need you on camera. We need you set. So I quickly like took a photo, said hi. I was like, I really appreciate it. You're so adorable. Like she was such a cute kid. And then like run off, right? But yeah, if you've seen a caster, like the players with the camera crew around them, it might be a situation that you wanna wait until after that's done.
Now, before we close out the show, Sierra, I just thought, since we didn't do full predictions for Liverpool, would you like to, for fun, just predict a winner? Like, pick a player that's going to win the Liverpool Regional Championship.
Ooh, yes. I have to think, though, because it's been a...
Because there's two ways you could go. You could choose, like, an invader, right? Like, I imagine Joe is going. I believe Pengy is also going, right?
I don't think Pengy's going.
He's not? I thought he told me he did. Maybe it was another... Maybe he went to another European event. Did he go to another European event recently?
Maybe. Lil,
maybe
I think.
Maybe that was what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So you can go with an invader, or you can go with, like, do you want to go with a British person? Do you want to go with a Portuguese person? A German? The world's your oyster.
I like how you're just listing off.
That's how Europe works,
That is how it works. You go first. I have to take a second to think.
I don't know if he's going or not. I assume he is because he's Eric Rios, but I'm just gonna lock in the Eric Rios answer. I was gonna say Edu, but Edu's already got the world's invite thing, so I don't know if he's going or not. I don't know if he plays in every regional or not. So I'm locking in Eric Rios.
That is a good call. I think we'll do a little recency bias here. And I'll say Marco Fierro. Obviously, invite, tear it up, but some money is always nice. So that's who I'll put my money on. So
I think we both have pretty good odds. I'm feeling good.
There is a lot of players that I would like to pick for this one, but yeah, that's how I'll do my answer. But yeah, I still do need to pack. I still have 2 more loads of laundry to do. So I am going to go do that laundry. As we said, this was going to be a not so long episode, so I could pack in time. My train leaves in 8 hours. But I
hope you make it.
Yeah, it will be
you got your last train was
and not had a good track record so far. But hey, if you made it to this point of the podcast, super appreciate you listening. Make sure to be joining the Discord. That's where we ask our question of the week. We talk about stuff. You can join in discussing this week's question of the week, which is something that actually we kind of were talking about before this went live. And make sure as well to be following on Twitter, etc. for all your podcast updates. Thank you so much for listening. If you are headed to Liverpool, hope that you have the best of travels. If not, enjoy the broadcast. And we'll see you next week.